It's your boys Osas. In today's episode, we are going to be adding badge counts to our channel. In the completed version of our application, as you can see on the simulator, we have this beautiful unread badge counts that actually pops up on a channel, and they basically signify the messages that you have not read inside of that specific channel. And in today's episode, we're going to go right ahead and model the data for that and actually write the Firebase logic that's going to allow us to be able to display and show this badge counts on our channel tab screen. And so if we jump into our Xcode project, right, the agenda for the day is pretty simple. We need to increase this badge counts every time we send a message to a specific user. And also we need to reset the badge counts every time we go into a channel for the first time. So how do we go about doing that? Well, first off, we need to discuss what these badge counts actually are. So right now I've jumped into my message service. And if you really think about it, this badge count has a bunch of metadata information that we need to think about when we're structuring it, right? So it belongs to a specific channel, if you think about it. And it also is specific to a user. So specific to a user and specific to a channel. And so, for example, we can't store it in the channel node inside of our backend because that would not work, right? We can't really go into, for example, if we go to our channels node right here, let's say we go into a channel ID, we can't really store the badge count here because then every single member of that channel will have the same badge count. And that's not necessarily correct because my badge count, for example, for, Obi-Wan Kenobi, or for like example, for Queen Padme could be 2, but for Queen Padme, she could have actually already read all of my messages. So our own batch counts should be 0. So how do we actually store this sort of like relational data, using this NoSQL JSON tree method or like this NoSQL style that Firebase gives us? And the way I'm going to actually approach solving this is we need to think about what specific node do we have right now that actually stores a specific user information or stores information for a user that, a channel that belongs to a user. Excuse me, I know that sounds confusing. Basically, which node do we have that has channels that belongs to a user? And we actually have a node that does that. So if we jump to our backend right now, and I'm going to go all the way to my Firebase real-time database, and if we jump into this channel called user channels, if you remember, this node is actually responsible for keeping account of the channels that belong to a specific user. So this is a specific user ID, right? And these are basically the channels that this user ID belongs to. And so by knowing that, we know, for example, YMC has this channel and this channel. And right now, the key is the channel ID and the value is just a Boolean that says true. And, while that works, in this situation, this is actually a perfect place for us to store our badge counts because think about it. This has the specific, it has a user, right? The data is tied to a user and it's tied to a specific channel. And if I change, for example, the true value on here, it's not going to go and change it universally for every single members of that channel. It's just going to change it for this specific user. So it makes sense for us to store it in something like user channels. And I believe this is the path. And then the user channel has a current UID. So which is the, the UID of the currently logged in user because we go user channel, UID, and then we have the channel ID as the key. So this is another unique identifier. And then we have, this value, which says true right now. But instead of just storing true here, we could just store, the batch count. So we could just say, for example, unread counts or whatever you want to call it, right? The unread counts for the specific channel. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing today. And just by doing this, we don't need to create another node or anything like that. All we need to do is keep our eyes on this unread counts, and we can use that to power our batch counts right here in the channel tab screen. So I'm going to go right ahead and create a new method inside of our message service. And I know this message service is getting really beefy, but maybe we'll get to refactoring it. Let's see. But the method that I want to create today is, as usual, a static method, and I'm just going to call it set batch counts, or set batch count for members, or you can call it set unread counts. I don't know which one sounds better, guys. Maybe unread count sounds better. So I'll say set unread counts for members, and we need to know which channel. So I'm going to say in channel, and I'm going to pass in the channel item. Okay. And now I'm going to get the member UIDs. So I'm going to say member UIDs is actually that was going to autocomplete for us. Let's see if we'll do that again. Yep, member UIDs. But I want to do members excluding me. So I'm going to say members excluding the currently logged in user, because what I'm trying to do here is whenever we send a new message, so let's say we're going to Tigress, if we send a message inside of Tigress, right, all we want to do is we want to go increase Tigress's, unread count to 1, but we don't really want to increase our own unread count, right, because we're the one sending the message, right? There's no need to increase the batch count for us. So essentially that's what we're trying to do here. And so then I'm going to map this. Basically, I'm going to transform it into an array of our UIDs, which is just going to be an array of strings. And so now let's loop through this. Let's say for UID and our member UIDs, what do we want to do? Well, let us go again, like I said, and jump into this channel user ref, go into the user ID for the specific chat partner, go into the channel ID, and let us change this from true to the batch counts. And that's exactly what we're going to do here. So I'm going to use this database transaction that we created a while ago, and let me see where it's at. I think it's right up here, right here. So right here, we have this method called increase count via transaction. And this is how we can increase or decrease. Well, this is specifically for increasing. So this is how we can increase the data count for a specific node. And I'm just going to go right ahead and do that here. And I'm going to create, so it needs a ref. So I'm going to say channel unread count ref. this is for the unread messages. So this is going to be Firebase constant, and this is going to be our users channel ref, because again, remember that. And then we're going to say, let's see, we need the UID, because remember, that's the way this node is set up. User channel, UID, channel ID. Okay, so the UID in this instance is going to be this specific UID that we're looping through. Remember, this is, the array of members in a specific channel, excluding the currently logged in user. And so then we're going to get the channel ID as well. And thankfully, we have the channel passed in here as a parameter. So we're going to say channel.id. And what else do we want to do? So now I'm going to call that increase counts via transaction method. And I'm going to pass in this reference. So what this is going to do is it's going to go into this path, right? One, it's going to go user channel, user ID, channel ID, and then it's going to change this from true to 0. Well, in this case to 1, because it's increasing the transaction count. And again, if you remember what this method does, it basically just goes to that specific ref and it increases the count, right? And if the count does not exist, as you can see, it changes it to 1. And so this should work. So where are we going to call this set unread counts or increase unread counts for members? So I think we should call it increase unread counts for members in channel. And where are we going to call this method? Well, we need to call it every single place where we're sending a message. So we need to call it when we're sending a text message. So I'm going to scroll the way up here. We have this, and just right before the uncomplete, I'm just going to call increase unread count for channel for members, and it's going to ask for a channel. We're going to pass in that channel, which is a parameter for this send text message method. So now I'm going to go do the same thing inside of our send media message, this guy right here. And right before the uncomplete, I'm just going to call it as well. So now every single time that we send a message inside of a channel, we're going to go into all of those channel members inside of their user reference, and we're going to increase their unread counts to 1. And so, that in that way, by doing so, we're going to have this nice batch counts that we have on this bad boys in the completed version of the project. And so this is basically what we need for our write operation. And we're going to jump into the read operation, but for us to be able to see what's actually going on, I would like for us to go create this specific badge in our channel tab screen. So this badge, let's go create it in our channel tab screen. And again, I know it's in the channel tab screen, so I'm just going to Command Shift and O, jump into our channel tab screen. Okay, and let us add, let's see, what do we want to do? Let us add a badge view. Let me refresh this bad boy, and let's wait for everything to load up. And this is a channel tab screen. I think I'm looking for the channel item view. So I'm going to command and jump into the channel item view. This is the one I'm looking for. So the channel item view is each one of these individual rows right here. And all we want to do is just add a nice badge view to that bad boy. And okay, so we have the timestamp. So we want something just right below. And honestly, I'm just going to use an overlay. It's just going to make my life easier. So I'm going to create a method down here as always. And I'm going to call it badge view. Or you can call it unread counts view. It doesn't matter. But I'm just going to call it badge view. And it's going to ask for a count. And this is going to be an integer. And this is going to return some view as always. And what do we need to do? I'm just going to create a text because it's just a text component. And let's just put, for example, 10 here. And let us go overlay this so we can actually see what we're working with. So where do we want to overlay this, badge view? I'm actually going to overlay it on this VStack because remember this VStack houses our text view and our timestamp right here, right? Well, our text view, title text view, and our message preview, the hello world. So let's just overlay it right here. I think it would just make our lives easier. And I'm going to use an alignment of bottom trailing because as you can see in the completed version of the project, it's just the bottom trailing. And let's see. And what else do we want to do? So I'm just going to pass in that badge view. I'm just going to say badge view, the counts. Let's just give it something like 10 for now. And let's go ahead and pass in that counts in here. Counts.description is going to give us the string representation. So right now it says 10 right there, which is good. Let's go ahead and style up that bad boy really quickly. So I'm going to give it a foreground style of white. And then I need to give it a background of background. And we have a color called badge, I believe. Badge. Okay, perfect. Actually, I can't even remember. Did I have this as a color asset? I think I did. Yep, I have a badge color. So that's why it's showing up as badge. Okay, so we have a badge. Let's resume this bad boy as a background color. And let us add bold to this baby just to make it look a little bit bolder. We need it to have a little bit of breathing space. So I'm going to give it a padding horizontal. And let's give it padding horizontal of 8. Let's give it padding vertical of something like 2. Okay, that looks pretty good. And we have a background color. It's bold. Let's give it a font of caption. And let's give it a clip shape of circle. Okay. And that looks pretty good. Yeah, that looks like exactly what I have in mind. Or let's give it capsule instead of circle. Capsule. I think the completed version is a capsule. And look at that, guys. We have our beautiful capsule here. And again, don't worry about the fact that this item is breathing all the way here. If you want that to look a little bit better, you could put the padding in the preview because in the actual place where we're calling this channel item view, remember it's a table view and it's going to look better there. So don't worry. So we have our badge view and everything looks good except we're just passing a random value in here. We need to actually go store the badge count inside of our channel. So I'm going to command and jump into the channel item and I'm just going to create instead of a badge counts, let's call it unread counts, because that sounds better. And the unread count is just going to be an integer, and I'm just going to assign it a value of 0 because I want to fetch this on the client side. And I'm not going to bother adding it to the dictionary, not really. You guys can go ahead and do that if you want, but I know I'm going to be needing to fetch this inside of the channel tab view model. So let's jump right back to, let's jump right back here. Let's jump right back here to our channel item view, and let's see, what do we want to do? Now let's pass in channel dot badge, well, the unread count. Okay, and so right now it's 0. And as you can see, it should not show up if it's 0 because in the completed version, we don't show anything if the unread count is 0. So all we're going to do here is we're just going to say if channel does unread count is greater than 0, that's the only time when we're going to show this, badge view, which makes sense. We're making it a conditional logic, and now it's disappeared, which is perfect. But now let's actually go fetch this badge view inside of our channel tab screen. So I'm going to Command Shift and O and channel tab view model, search for that bad boy, jump into that file. Now this is where it gets interesting, right? Because now we actually need to go fetch our batch counts or our unread counts. And how are we going to do that? That's the real question, right? How do we fetch this channel unread counts? Like I said, it's inside of our user. So we have our user channels, we have our user ID, we have our channel ID, and then we have our badge counts or unread counts. So let's go right ahead and actually write the method that's going to be responsible for that. Right down here, I'm just going to create a private function, and I'm just going to call it get unread count for channel, and it's going to take in a channel item, and I want to return a completion. So it's going to be escaping, and it's going to return the unread counts. And the unread counts, as we already know, is an integer. And let's pass in a void, return a void. And how do we get this unread count? Well, I want us to listen to this unread count all the time, like I said, because remember, the unread count here, whenever it changes, we want to automatically change that unread count on the UI side. And the way we're going to do that is just set up a Firebase method. And I'm going to get this current UID because we need to go to that path that we just created over here, right? And so we're just going to say, let's see, we're going to say Firebase constants, the child, the user channels ref, the child of current UID, the child of channel. So I'm going to say channel.id and .child. I think that's all we need. So we have our user channels ref, user ID, channel ID, and then this is going to have the unread counts. So all I'm going to do here is I'm just going to say observe single event of, and I'm going to pass in the value of value snapshot. Okay. Snapshot. Pass in a weak self. Actually, do we even need to, no weak self here. All we need to do is return this completion handler. So I'm going to say let unread count. The unread count is going to be our snapshot of value. So the snapshot that value is going to be of type integer. And let's just default it to 0 if we find no value there, or if this casting fails, because remember, we're going here, and it should be 0. And for now, because remember the initial statements or the initial channels that we created, these data all have true. So let's just default everything to 0 unless there's an actual integer in that bad boy. And then we're just going to throw in this completion handler. We're going to pass back the unread messages counts. Unread messages counts, okay? And so get unread messages, let me call it messages, unread messages counts for channel. I think that sounds like a better description. And so where do we want to use this bad boy, guys? I'm just going to go right ahead and call it inside of our fetch current channels method, because remember, this is actually honestly almost the same node. We're going channel, current UID, observe, and do we even need to go fetch it? Let's actually think for a second here, guys. Do we even need to go fetch this bad boy again? Actually, I don't even think we need to go fetch this. Hold on, guys. I think I'm tripping. Actually, there's no need to comment this out. Let us print something really quickly. So let us go right ahead and print. I'm going to say let's unread counts, or unread, not in here. So I'm going to say unread messages, unread counts is not new channel.counts. Well, I want it to be the value, right? Because again, once we do current UID, the value is going to be the unread counts. So I would like for us to print that bad boy right here. And I'm just going to say unread messages counts is, and we're just going to say unread count. And right now it's saying it's of type any. Let us default it to integer, else let's default it to 0. And let's go ahead and run that bad boy, and let's send a message, and let's actually see what happens. So I've gone ahead and ran both of these bad boys on 2 different simulators. So let's jump into the channel tab screen, and look at that. Right now it's saying the unread messages count is 1. Okay, interesting. I mean, it really is it 1 yet? Have we really sent any messages yet? Let's go ahead and see this other one. Let's send a message to this bad boy right here. So we're currently logged in as QA user 3 here. Let's send a message to QA user 3 from here, and let's see what happens. Howdy. And let's see if our channel tab actually pops up. Actually, it shouldn't, because we're not decoding. No. Oh, yeah. I'm tripping, guys. So let me actually filter out for unread messages inside of here. And right now it's just saying 1. What if we send another one? Actually, I'm entering the wrong text. Unread. And let me go here inside of this text field. Let me send another one. Hit that send button. It's still showing unread messages count is 1. And that's obviously not correct, but let's jump into our Firebase node. And this looks like awesome. This is perfect. So it says 3 here, so it's correct, right? we actually sent 3 messages. Let me send one more just to be sure that's the right node. When I hit that send button and I jump to my Firebase node, look at that. It increases it to 4. So we know we're storing it in the right paths because this is the user's channels ref, user ID, channel ID, and yeah, and then the channel ID and then the value. So that's perfect. Now let's go actually map this bad guy. And the way we're going to do that is, let me see here. Actually, I remember earlier I said I don't want to map the channel item. I think we should actually do that. So let's jump into our channel item. Let's actually map this on red counts, guys. And we're just going to scroll the way down here. And let's see, scroll the way down here. Let's create an unread count. Let me create an unread count static property here. And I'm just going to say static. Let's unread count is, the unread count. Let's go use that to decode it in the dictionary. So we're going to say self.unread counts is equals to our dictionary. We know using the key of unread counts, there should be an integer in there. And if there's no integer, we default it to 0. So let's jump into our channel tab view model. Actually, let's just go ahead and run our project now. And let's see what happens if that batch count shows up for QA user 3. So right now it is loading, jump into the channel, and this is QA user 3. And let me run this other guy on the simulator, on the second simulator as well, just so we have 2 things to compare with. And let's send messages between the both of them, and let's see what happens. So I'm gonna launch this as well. Jump here, and let me send a message from here. It says howdy. Hit that send button. It says howdy, but it's not showing up. I mean, it's showing the right message count here, guys. It's saying unread messages count is 4, which is correct, right? If I say haha, hit that send button. So it's only fetching once, which is weird because it shouldn't really only fetch once, because this is an observe event and it's a value. And so what's going on? Let me run this one more time, guys. Let's see what's going on here. Is it only responding or like firing once? Is that what's going on? So it says unread messages count is 4. Okay. But why is that batch count not showing up here? I guess, let me see if I can map it in here. So can I say something? Oh, actually, you know what? I'm tripping. Yeah, well, we're not really decoding it from the channel item because the unread count doesn't really belong inside of the messages or the channel dictionary, right? We're not storing it inside of the channel dictionary in the backend. We're storing it in the user's channels ref. So I'm the one who's tripping. Programming 101. The compiler or the program is never wrong. So what I need to do here now is inside of my get channel method, I'm going to pass in a unread count in here. So I'm just going to ask in for unread count, and it's just going to be an integer. And then we're going to set the channel. So where we're saying channel.members, let's just say channel.unread counts is equals to our unread counts that we are passing from here. And this should yell at us because this method right here, this get channel method now should ask for unread counts. We're just going to pass in that unread counts. So let's go ahead and run our project, and hopefully that fixes things for us, fingers crossed. And we're going to validate that really quickly. But look at that. So we have unread count here is 4. Let me try that really quickly. Hit that send button. It changes to 5. Voila. Beautiful. One more. Awesome. What about the other way around? So right here, we have no unread count here. Let's say I send them something from here, and I don't think we have fixed this one yet. So let's run this other simulator as well. Let's run this logic on this other simulator so we see the comparison. But as you can see, we can start to see the unread messages counts. Once we are done validating that everything is working, we need to reset them. So I'm going to jump into this one, and I know this is a little bit confusing. So this one says QA user 4. There's 4 unread messages. Let me send a photo message. Hit that send button on here. This one changes to 7. If I go out of QA user 3, this one is still 4. And if I send one from here, this one should now be 5, right? It should be 5 unread messages. So 5, hit that send button, and it is 5. And this one should still be 7. That is correct, guys. That's awesome. So we have successfully set up our unread messages for each specific channel for a specific user. The next thing we need to go do is actually to nail things whenever we go into a channel. So for example, QA user 27, if we go into that channel, we should zero out the unread counts for us back to 0. And that's going to be very easy. But this is very funny, guys. Just like watching myself debug things on live and go through, this process of realization. So I'm going to go ahead and remove this method because we no longer need it, right? Because we're getting that right from here. The second thing I'm actually going to also go ahead and do is, and this is the beauty of like why we started where we started, because it's such an easily accessible, unread count. It's such an easily accessible value because we don't even need to make an extra database call. It's just available. And also inside of our channel item, we no longer need to decode this. I'm just going to remove this and also remove this. And let's leave everything the way they are. We still need this unread count here. And the other thing I want us to do is let's go zero this. So I'm going to jump into our message service, and I'm going to create a function that's going to be responsible for zeroing things out for us. So I'm just going to say static func reset unread count. And I'm going to do the same logic for members and channel. And this is going to be the channel item. And the one thing we need is we need the current user ID. So I'm going to say God let current UID is equals to auth, the current user, the UID, else return out of this scope if there's not a currently logged in user. And then we're going to take this same reference, so this same, user reference, So we have the user channels ref, the UID is going to be the current user ID in this instance, and then the channel ID, and then we're just going to set the value to 0. Again, all we're doing is we're jumping into our database, and when we're in our database, for example, we have 7 here, and I believe that 7 is for QA user 3, right? If you jump in here, if I jump back to my database, we have our users channels ref. This is the QA user 3's user ID right here, and the channel for that with the person that we're chatting with right here is 7, right? We want to 0 this once we go into that channel. So once we jump into this channel, this should change to 0. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to call this reset unread messages counts. And let's see, where do we really want to call it? Because we want it to always be active, right? Because when we're inside of a channel, let's say we're inside of this channel, if you send me a message, I still want that batch counts for this channel to be 0 because I already read the message, right? It only should increase when I'm not inside of that channel right now. And I think the best place for us to put it is, first off, let's jump into our chat room view model, Command Shift and O, chat room view model. So inside of our chat room view model, let us think for a second, guys. And I'm going to look for like an active listener that can help us keep this, updated or in sync with the actual state. And I think listen for new messages is the best choice that we have. So let's see. Where's the listen for new messages? I'm going to Command and F and find listen for new messages. This method, Command and click into it. And this bad boy right here. So honestly, I'm just going to call this in here. So I'm going to say message service dot reset unread counts for members in channel. And honestly, do I even need the channel here? All I really need is the channel ID, if I'm being honest. But sure, let's just leave that. Let's see. Yeah, let's just leave that. I'm just gonna get the channel ID by saying let channel is equals to channel, which is the channel inside of our chat room view model, else return. And also, by the way, is channel optional? I don't think it's optional, so I don't even need to unwrap it. What am I even doing, guys? Yeah, I don't even need to unwrap that. I think that is good to go. This is yelling at us. We probably need to self the channel. And that might yell at us because that's an optional self. So let us unwrap optional self. This is basically just Swift 101, guys. Unwrapping self all over the place. So usual. And let's just return out of the scope. And now we can just call self. So here's what's going on. Remember, this listen for new messages is always firing. Like every single, it's an active observer. Like if I jump into it, look at it. It's literally this observe snapshot, right? It's always an active listener. So if we're in here and someone sends us a message, we're going to get it because we're using this listen for new messages to get it, right? And what we're doing is if we're inside of here, we always want to reset, the channel counts, the unread counts for that specific channel because we're inside of the channel already. And so I think reset unread counts for members in channel. So I think that name is kind of funny because it's not really for all the members. It's only for the current user. But I think you guys get the point. Feel free to, rename things if you want. Let us go ahead and run our project and let's see what happens when we go inside of a channel now. Like for example, this QA user 27 should now have a 0 badge. So right now it has, we're logged in as QA user 27. This has 5. If we go inside of QA user 3, it should be 0 now. So let's go back out. Look at that, guys. Voila. What about this one? Let's go in here. Let's go back out. Look at that. Voila. What about this one? Go in here. Go back out, it's 0. And it's not going to work for this one because we need to run it on the simulator as well. But let us test what we're doing really quickly. And I have no idea what the heck just happened, but let me jump back in here and let me go back to the file I was just in. But as you guys can see, let us send message to QA user 3 really quickly and into the QA user 3 channel, basically QA user 27, because that's what we're logged in as QA user 3 here, right? That's why it's showing up as QA user 3 here. So let's send a message to QA user 7 really quickly and let's see if the badge count goes up. Hit that send button. Look at that. Goes up. Pretty nice, isn't it? And let's go into that channel now, right? We've gone in there. It should reset the batch count, right? And let's go back out. Look at that. It resets it. So let's run it on this other simulator just to make sure everything is working as expected. Like, all of these channels, we should be able to reset all these to 0. So let's run our simulator again one last time, just for old time's sake. And that's going to be it for this episode, guys. So let's jump into this channel, go in here, come back out. Look at that, guys. It's resetting. And it's pretty neat. Again, we're just reusing a database node that we're already using, right? Like we're already storing our user information inside of this, inside of this user channels node anyway. We're just changing it from true, from Boolean. We're just changing it to, 1 or 2 or whatever the unread counts really is. And so I hope we did not really break anything. And I don't think we did. But if we did, I'm sure we're going to find out in the next couple of episodes. But that's it for this episode, guys. Please like and subscribe. Again, bringing you premium quality content on YouTube. It's not easy. It's a lot of work to record these videos. It's over 70 videos at this point. The least you can do for your boy is to hit that thumbs up and hit that subscribe and share it on your LinkedIn page and your Twitter page. It means a lot to me. And, I'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.